Hi everybody, coming on here today. I want to share my Pikes Peak story with you briefly. Also, I want to jump off that last video and make a correction, or not a correction, but an addition to it. And number one is, as far as Allie Carter is concerned, when I speak of people, I'm talking about them as human beings and their suffering. All the externals that go on around people, those are their positions, and that's between them and the Lord. What I was referencing is her heart space, what she is going through. All those other things, go over there. So also in one video, I talked about the people that wear long white robes and that we all know who they are. The Lord wanted me to correct myself. I was not referring to the Arabs. I was actually referring to people that looked like that man who kidnapped Elizabeth Smart. Remember that guy and how he wore a long robe with like a ropish looking thing around it? That's what that vision looked like. So just for some corrections or additions and one correction. So Pikes Peak. So I'm going up Pikes Peak with my church group, and I was told ahead of time to find a way down. Well, I didn't do it. I just assumed that somebody in the church would get me down to the base. So we're all going up this Pikes Peak thing, and it's 14,000 feet in the air. It's a 14er, so we go all the way up, we get to the summit. And so I start poking around looking for a way down, just assuming that someone from the church would allow me to drive down with them. Not one person would allow me to drive down the peak. So what that meant is I would have to walk all the way back down. Hours and hours and hours of walking. And so I went into the restaurant that's at the top, or whatever, some type of a hydration place, I can't remember, because that was in the late 80s, by the way. I was a lot younger and much healthier. And so there was one more group left, and I asked them if I could ride down, and they said, no, you should have thought about that before you came up. So I'm leaving. I'm just thinking, well, I'm devastated at this point, and there the last group goes, just passes me by. And I am starting to walk down Pikes Peak on the paved part, thinking, I'm never going to make it. I am never going to be able to walk all those hours back down that peak and live. And then it starts to drizzle, and most of you who do hiking, assuming some of you do, you know what the weather gets like at the top of a 14er at a certain point. You know, the lightning, the rain, it just gets miserable. And that's to put it mildly. So I start to cry. I'm like, oh, this is awful. You know, and I can't believe that every one of those people would just turn their back on me, drive right by me. So anyway, get this. Here's what Jesus does in the midst of my storm, a literal storm and an emotional storm, because mentally I was flat and physically it was over for me. So all of a sudden, these three older women, and they had to be in their late 60s, early 70s even, show up out of nowhere on the top of Pikes Peak, people, out of nowhere. And they just pull up beside me and they say, you know, the driver says, I am so afraid to drive down. She goes, will you drive us down? She goes, and we'll take you down. Because we had a little conversation, I told her I was walking because I couldn't find a ride down. So anyway, that's it. Out of the middle of freaking nowhere, they just show up. That's how Jesus works. It's a message for somebody. You need to know that no matter where you are in your life, he's going to provide. And in the most unusual ways. Jesus just like, it's like manna coming down from heaven. They just showed up, literally, people, I can't say it enough, out of nowhere. But it wasn't out of nowhere. They were sent at that time, at the right moment, when I needed him to provide for me the most. Not only did they take me to the base, they took me all the way home. The other thing you need to understand is it is God who directs the hearts of people. And sometimes he's going to shut all their hearts down, and sometimes those people are going to be in the church. And what you have to do is take a look around the corner and try to figure out what the Lord's trying to teach you. And this was my lesson. You do not ever rely on mankind. Like a friend of mine said, God is your provider, and he was, and he is. If I could tell my younger self anything, and that is to trust God, don't turn your back on him, trust him for everything. With your kids, your food, your provisions for life, everything, no matter what happens. All right, everybody, that is my Pikes Peak story. I hope it blesses one of you. Talk to you guys soon.